Brian reads our verse of the day, a verse that literally got me through probably the toughest times in my life. Romans 8:28. It says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Okay, not my purpose, his purpose. Today I want to kind of get back into our values. We try to preach through our values on an annual basis. We're running out of time, but I'm gonna get another one in here today. Okay. Today we want to talk about purpose, priority, focus. And you know, some people might think that is urgent in your life. And I don't really like that word urgent a whole lot. It kind of implies crisis. I would rather talk about the word what's important to you. Okay? What is it that you value? What is it that's important to you? Not crisis-centered, something that's big picture, long term, we might say. What is it today that you value? And I think as individuals, we don't spend enough time going down this path. We don't examine our lives in a way that I believe the Lord would have us. Today we talk about purpose, one of our values. Let's have a prayer. Father God, we thank you, we love you. I thank you for this wonderful day. I thank you as I see yet another man come through this program, Lord. I thank you for changed lives. I thank you for saved lives, Lord. And right now I thank you for this opportunity to hopefully deliver your message. Speak through me now, Lord. We just love you and we pray this as always in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. You know, in the last, 15, 20 years, businesses, churches, nonprofits have all been kind of going down this path of we need to develop our mission statement, our vision statement, and our values. Okay? Everything's based on mission, vision, and values. And I can say that holds true here for step 7 also. One of the very first things that came out of putting this ministry together was our very simple mission statement. And I believe that mission statements, they're kind of written in stone. They need to stay pretty set. Vision statements are a little more malleable. They can change as time goes on. A vision statement is a preferable future. What is the vision of this entity, of this community? Our mission statement here is simply sharing Jesus with the addicted. We're on our 3rd vision statement right now. I wrote the first 2. Brian has blessed us with the last one, about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, Brian? And it's just gorgeous. It says, to see men become Christ-centered, set free from addictions, and transformed into leaders. That's our vision. We want to see men become Christ-centered, set free from addiction, and transformed into leaders. And if you look at it, we've got 3 of them right there. There's freedom, there's Christ-centered, and there's leadership. That beautiful vision statement is based on our values around here. Values that some of them I hold very personal. They're my personal values also. And these values, they didn't come around until about 3 or 4 years ago when Straley and I got together and said, you know, we're going to pray through these values. And we came up with these 12. And each one of these has their own personal verse. The verse that we read today, Romans 8:28, is the verse that goes with purpose. The funny thing about this, though, is if you look at the way we did it, it's all backwards. We did it backwards here at Step 7. Imagine that. Here we are, Step 7, we do things kind of in a funny way. We started with our mission. That makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. Where should we have started? Values. What is it that's important to me? Okay? What are the values of this community? What matters to us? And then we say, okay, we're going to translate those into what it is we're going to do. Our mission. We did everything backwards, but tell you what? Worked out. Worked out just fine. You know, I look at my life and my personal values. I value family. I value health. I value service. I especially value our foundational value, which is Christ-centered spiritual growth. That means everything to me. Everything hinges on this right here. Everything. Health, family, service. It's all about Christ-centered service. And I pray today, folks, that you'll take some time, that you'll be intentional about examining your life and really do figure it out. You know, what is it that I value? What a simple question. But could we have a more important one? What is it that I value, and what am I going to do with that? How am I going to turn that into my personal mission? My purpose. Okay, folks? Purpose. You know, I'm gonna share a story this morning that's pretty tough. I don't know if I've struggled with a message more in the last few years than I have today's message. I almost crumpled it up and tossed it yesterday and tried to put a new one together, but I thought, you know, no, this illustration works. Okay, it's a tough one. And I'm going to talk today about the passing of our daughter. And I've mentioned this a few times in the past, but today I'm going to get into it a little bit heavy. It's a time in my life where I learned more lessons than any experience I've ever had. A few of you in the room were around, Bob and the McLeans. Tough story. And please know I have my wife's permission. I told her, I said, you know, Cindy, if you don't even want to come to church earlier in the week, you don't have to. I thank you for sitting here, Cindy. Toughest thing that we ever went through. But I can tell you, good has come out of it. Okay? Good has come out of it. I can tell you that none of us would be sitting in this room right now if it wasn't for the passing of our daughter. None of us. And having said that, that means some of us might not be here. Period. Because I believe that Step 7 has saved quite a few lives. Okay? That's good stuff. I would suggest that when the day comes, when the skies part and the Lord comes and takes us home, you all find my daughter. Tell her thank you. I'll kind of try to make this quick. About 14 years ago, Ashley went to a Swedish hospital. She was in labor, and we obviously went along. She gave birth to our third grandchild at the time. Trevor is his name. He's about 14 and a half years old now. A great kid. It's a wonderful situation. After the birth that Cindy and I, observed, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in here that have been around the birth of a child or a grandchild. There's nothing more special than that. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. We went down to get a bite to eat. And obviously, we were just as high as a kite, Okay, we were as excited as we could be. And we went back up to the floor, and we were greeted by the nurse, who said, we're having some real problems with Ashley. She's bleeding, and we can't stop the bleeding. And to kind of make a long story short here, a couple hours later, she passed. And I'll never forget, they brought us into a room where they said the doctor needed to talk to us. I think all of us. Chantel was there, obviously myself and Cindy. Our granddaughter Kayla, Ashley's oldest daughter, was there. She was 13 years old at the time. I think we all knew what was coming. They said, we need to talk to you. The doctor will be here in a minute. And they told us that they had lost Ashley. Out of the corner of my eye, Kayla just collapsed. She went to the floor. And I was paralyzed. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. My wife was sitting next to me here, and I knew that I had to do something. I finally looked over at her and I grabbed her head and I said, we will get through this. That's all I could come up with. We will get through this. Okay? My buddy, Pastor Dave, who was my boss at the same time, was there. He was the senior pastor. I was an associate pastor. I'd been a pastor for 3 months when this happened. I had just received my first assignment down at the Franktown Church, and I'd been a pastor for 3 months. And this is the scene that is kind of tough. And I mentioned this to my wife this week, because we've never talked about this scene. 14 years have gone by, and I've never mentioned this to Cindy, but I brought it up to her this week as I struggled with this message today. They asked us if we would like to go in and be with Ashley. And Dave said, you know, Tom, you probably ought to do that. It would be good for closure, you know, to go in there. So we went in there, and we were standing next to Ashley. And I apologize here, because this is a tad bit graphic, but this comes around, so bear with me. We're standing there, and I'm standing next to Cindy, and I'm just a little bit behind her, and the both of us are in complete shock. I mean, you talk about going from a mountaintop experience to the bottom of the valley within a couple hours. That's what happened to us. And I'm standing next to my bride and my baby girl, and I don't know if Cindy even probably realized that I was standing right there next to her. But at that moment, a drop of blood came out of Ashley's nostril and went down her cheek. Cindy started rifling through her purse, okay? And I'm watching this scenario. And Cindy's looking for a Kleenex, and she finally finds one, and she cleans up our daughter's face. And that image of seeing my wife in that scenario was burned into my mind, and I couldn't get over it. The beautiful thing, though, and trust me on this, about this situation, is that I use this as an illustration today, because through that process, I lost my purpose. I got very depressed down the road, but then again, the Lord came in and He gave me back my purpose. I had this vision that I didn't know what to do with. I surely couldn't find God in it. This vision of my wife scrambling through her purse. And I needed to find God in it. The thing that happened, though, as the father and the husband, I had a purpose. It hit me like a brick real quick. I had a purpose. My job at that moment was to take care of my family. And that worked for about 8 or 9 months. I held on to that purpose. Okay. I never once, until just this last week, asked Cindy if she remembered that moment. And she said, well, of course I remember that moment. But I had this purpose to take care of my family. As time went by, I kind of went in the tank. I didn't really talk to anybody about it, but I became very depressed. I would sit in my office for hours on end, staring out the window. I wasn't doing any ministry. I was a brand new pastor, and I was serving nowhere. I was just trying to get through the days. I would stare out the window. It might be 12 o'clock, and I'd look and I'd say, you know, maybe you should go make a sandwich, get something to eat. And I'd look back out the window, and I'd look at my watch, and it'd be 3 o'clock. Hours had passed by. It got so bad that one day, I was literally wrestling with Satan in my office. I told him, I said, you know, Satan, if this is how you play too rough for me. I came this close to leaving the ministry. That's when it happened. That's when the Lord stepped back in. And soon after that, as I was sitting in my study, I heard, you know, PT, this is not about you. This is not about you. Amen. I heard encouragement from him. He says, you know, I want you to recognize something here. You lost your daughter almost a year ago, and you haven't even thought about going out and getting stupid. I realized that. I said, wow, that's cool. That's pretty neat. I never once thought about going and getting a bottle. What a perfect excuse to go out and get drunk. Perfect excuse. Nobody would have blamed me. But he said, you didn't do that. But he said, you know what? It's time for you to get up off your butt and to get out there and get back attached to your values. You need to start serving again. You need to remember that this is what it's about for you. Christ-centered spiritual growth. Service. It wasn't a whole lot longer after this that the idea for Step 7 came to life. The beauty of it, folks, is that I finally figured out that Ashley's okay. A day's coming when I'm going to see her again.
Amen.
I also realized, you know what? I'm okay. I got through the worst thing that could have happened to me. He brought me through it. The Bible tells us that God is faithful. You know, we talk all the time about, oh, you need a little more faith. You just need a little more faith. You know, the Bible says if I have faith the size of a mustard seed, I could move mountains. The Bible tells me that God is faithful. And I recognized it. In this moment, I recognized I'm all right. God got me through that. And I can tell you, friends, that has made all the difference in the world in my life. I came back to CCSG. I came back to realizing I need to serve. He hit me right between the eyes when he told me that this is not about you. I mentioned a minute ago, talking about Sean. I love it when there's no drama. And we need to have the mindset that this is not about me. What is His purpose for me? And folks, our purpose needs to be based on our values. And please know that values are not goals. Some people get that confused. Values are not goals. I had a goal years ago to become a pastor based on Christ-centered spiritual growth, on leadership. Those were the values that were behind that goal of mine. I became a pastor. I checked it off. Goals get checked off. I value health. I try to keep my weight at a certain place. I value health, but I can check that off. Values do not get checked off, folks.
Amen.
Values direct our goals. They direct our purposes. I encourage you today to please research your life. Examine your life. What is it that you value? And friends, it's your life. Don't let anybody speak to you on that. This is between you and the Lord. What is it that you value? And I hope and pray that it involves something that's Christ-centered. Examine your life. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." That's a strong statement. Today I just want to look at 2 quick verses. Please turn to Isaiah. Isaiah 41. Oh, excuse me. Isaiah 46. Isaiah 46, middle of the Bible. Pretty popular verse here. 46 verse 10. We are told, "I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please." God's purpose. Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him." Well, folks, I love Him. I love God. I love Jesus. Amen. And then it says, "Whoever has been called to His purpose." My friends, that's all of us. We have all been called to God's purpose. Turn to your left. Proverbs 19. I love this verse. Another pretty popular verse. Proverbs 19, verse 21. Simply says, "Many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." Okay? My friends, your purpose needs to be His purpose. Okay? It is absolutely insane to think that we can run away from God's purpose. It won't work, you guys. There's no future in that. Please realize. I come back always to Christ-centered spiritual growth and service. For me, that's what matters. I ask you again, please, this week, consider what it is that you value. Make sure that it's Christ-centered. And then always, always be moving towards it. establish your values. In doing that, you'll find your focus, and in doing that, you'll find your purpose through your Christ-centered values. And I'll just finish with a question here this morning. Are you pursuing your values? Are you living on purpose? Let's pray. Father God, Lord, again, I just thank you for this day. I thank you for these friends. I thank you for this ministry. I pray, Lord, that you would help us all to spend some time with you in this coming week. To prayerfully come before you and examine our values, that we might get on board with you and know what our Christ-centered purpose is. Lord, I pray that you would speak to everybody this week in a loud voice. Leave the whispers behind. Help us all to examine our lives, knowing that you have a wonderful purpose for all of us. And even through the tough times, Lord, your purpose will prevail, and we can learn from it, and we can be blessed by it, no matter the circumstances, Lord. Help us to remember that. And we thank you, and we love you. And as we always do, we lift up our praises, we lift up our petitions, our prayers, Lord, in that most precious, precious name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.